This episode is proudly supported by OpenTable.
Nearly 1/3 of diners are booking same day. So they're making those decisions on the spot. And 10% are making their bookings within just a few hours. And so it's why it's so important to have booking software like OpenTable, which allows your diners to discover you. And so when restaurants are on platforms like OpenTable, they're much more likely to be discovered. We help diners to connect to restaurants. Ultimately, having technology, using technology, helps you to reattach to those diners.
Experience the power of OpenTable. For an exclusive offer, visit restaurant.opentable.com.au/DITW.
It really has given me a better appreciation, I think, for food and for the people that start the journey of that food, and I think and I try to do it justice on the plate here at Merrick's. We try to make sure that whatever someone's, done their really hard work and producing such an amazing product, we try to do it justice when we put it on the plate.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Last time we caught up with Martin Dulke. He was running the entire food and beverage offering for some of Australia's largest stadiums, but things are a little bit different now. He's made a sea change and game day is very different. Martin, how are you?
Hi, mate. How you doing? Very good to hear from you. It's been a while.
It's been a while. You were on the show quite a few, I don't even know how long ago now. It was a bit of a vortex the last couple of years, but it feels like ages ago, and your life is dramatically different.
Yeah, it is dramatically different. I think I did about episode 30 of your fantastic podcast. So, and I think that was just at the beginning of COVID. And I think I was sitting in a 5-star hotel serving quarantine cuisine because we'd geared the stadiums up to run hotel foods.
That is such a time warp.
Life is a little different.
Yeah, well, that's right. You were looking after the quarantine food. You're looking after, I think, the new stadium out at Parramatta had opened. Life was very different, but where are you now?
So I had always had this feeling that I would return to Victoria at some stage in my career, and so I'm now parked beachside down at a place called Merrick's, which is down on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. I spoke to a couple of chef mates, Ben Cooper and Ian Curley, and said, "Hey boys, I think I'm going to venture back to Melbourne." And within a week, Ian Curley had me meeting up with Charlie Bailu and Samantha Meyer, who own Merrick's General Store.
Was that decision, I know you mentioned that one day you dreamed of moving back to Victoria, but was it a tough decision to make?
It actually, there was some parts that were tough, and obviously, my son has grown up. He's 25, so he sort of didn't need dad in New South Wales or Sydney anymore. And but I'd been at the stadium sort of 11 or 12 years, so I really did need a change. I did need to do something apart from 80,000 people in the Olympic Stadium. But there was some. Yeah, just a little change. But there was a part of my career I missed, and that part was the paddock to fork type concept. And lo and behold, that Merrick's also own a couple of wineries, and they grow all their own vegetables. So there was an opportunity to actually, go paddock to plate, which I'd never done. I had a restaurant for 10 years of my own, and it was seafood, so I clearly didn't grow anything. So there was an opportunity and just a dead set sea change, like just absolute, be more creative and have license to thrill, basically.
Was it hard to adjust to the change after looking after such an epic scaled sort of operation? Was it hard for you to change and adjust?
Yeah, well, it was a little bit. It was kind of different. Part of my drive to work is, there are signs that says "Be careful, koalas crossing," versus heading down Victoria Road towards Homebush to the Olympic Stadium and heading down there and having to dodge pedestrians. So there was a lot of change. And Merrick's General Store it's a little bit outside, clearly the metropolitan area. So it's 50 minutes from Melbourne, but it's on a beautiful freeway, and it's my drive is every day is pretty cruisy. I'm against the traffic, and it's there's hardly any sets of traffic lights, which is a big difference to going down Victoria Road.
Give us a sense of the sort of history of the building and the venue.
Yeah, so Merrick's when I was in negotiations with them, they were having their 100th birthday. So Merrick's General Store, which we now call Merrick Store, is 100 years old. And if you actually Google it, it's there's some classic old photos of it. Some horse and cart type stuff, and it was the place to come and get your post and a couple of grocery items and that sort of thing. Charlie and Samantha, who are incredibly generous people. Bales Meyer, who everyone might know him from the Myers family, Bales bought it, and the rumor is that he grabbed hold of this because he owned two wineries, and he didn't really want people traipsing on his turf at the wineries for trying to go to a cellar door. So he created a cellar door. So the Merrick's store is now a cellar door for about 30 different vineyards. It's also a restaurant that seats about 150. It's got a cafe, and it's also got a thing called Traders, where we make all our own produce and jams and chutneys and things like that. So it's a huge entity. I'd actually never heard of it, and to be honest, and then when I actually finally got down here to meet with them, I was actually just blown away. Just the quality of the building. It's obviously heritage listed, but what they've done behind it and so forth. It's absolutely incredible.
Well, I want to sort of explore what you are doing there at Merrick's, but tell us a little bit about sort of that stadium life. What are some of the highlights or fond memories you have from that world of feeding so many people?
Yeah, I have some really fond memories of stadium life, and the crew at Venues Life who look after those stadiums are a really great crew, and the CEO, Daryl Carey, is a fantastic guy. But some of the highlights for me is, end-on-end concerts, and I actually don't envy them because they actually probably just went through a hectic period with Ed Sheeran and Harry Styles sort of end-on-end, and I kind of don't envy being there for that, because doing those vast numbers, 80 or 90,000 each night for 4 nights is pretty hectic. Just after just sort of prior to COVID, we did Queen and Firefight concert, sort of end on end. And I remember those, and just the vast amount of food that is served. And, we're talking semi-trailer loads of chips and things like that. And I mean, just obviously prior to leaving, there was there's obviously a chip shortage in Australia still. And you can imagine a stadium that it's one of its staples is chips. And, you can imagine the discussions and the procurement team having to pre-purchase, truckloads of chips to make sure that they had enough to go through, grand finals, NRL grand finals and concerts and all that sort of stuff. So it's, some great people, some great chefs, and made some great friends. And, it was just, it was one of those environments where, Daryl Carey had sort of given me license to be creative and changed how the stadium food was seen. And we all know that Maryvale sort of jumped into to grab a couple of stadiums in the city as well. So the playing field changed just before I finished up. And people have an expectation now of more, of more quality and better food and sort of more on point sort of dining in, whether it be the corporate suites or through to retail. So it was exciting. I saw it all, and then I feel like I left it in a pretty good space. And then it was sort of more about what I wanted to go and do and what I wanted to go and create for myself. So.
Is there anything that you miss from sort of that sort of stadium life and those big events?
Not overly. Like I kind of miss the. I kind of miss the volume a little bit. So some days, at Merrick's we'll do, 240 for lunch. We don't open for dinner, which is another story in itself. But we only do breakfast and lunch, and it's very civilized. But on a day, on a weekend, we'll do a couple of hundred for lunch, and sort of that's as big as it gets. And I would, go back to stadium life, which would be 3,000 or 4,000 in corporate suites, eating the same meal. So just the mass volume, and just producing that mass volume and trying to get it, to actually, present it really well is an absolute challenge in itself. Merrick, the challenge in itself is, chatting to our gardener, a couple of times a week, and then waiting to see what he's picked to bring down. And the challenge is, a most incredible crate of eggplant will arrive, all shapes and sizes, and I've got about half an hour to decide what am I going to run with for the specials for the week and the weekend, and what fruits and things can I hand off to the pastry chef for her to create some cakes and stuff like that. So there's still the same sort of challenges. It's just the number is different.
How did it feel when you started at Merrick's?
I felt like an absolute fish out of water. Because a brigade on a big event at the stadium is, there's 150 chefs in for a state of origin or a grand final or something like that, and then I come down to Merrick's and there's there's 20 odd wait staff on a service, plus I've got sort of 8 or 9 in the kitchen. So it was pretty unusual, and I think the best part of it though was actually being back on the tools and actually leading and tapping into there's some really clever chefs in this area, and we're not in the heart of Melbourne, so most of the chefs I have here are all local to the Mornington Peninsula, so they're all guys that are growing their own veg at home, because most of them live on acreage or something like that. So, the biggest challenge I have here is, I don't actually have any staff challenges. The challenge here is, tapping into their capabilities and making sure that they feel heard, and that, they come to me and say, hey, I've been growing this at home. Can we, we've got the same stuff at Algae Park at our farm. So, and it's, giving them the voice and encouraging them to bring something to the table, so there can be a really good collaboration with all of us.
You mentioned that Merrick's was breakfast and lunch, but you're not trading at dinner. Tell us a bit about that and why that's so.
Yeah, it's really comes from Bales Meyer. He believes that this is a business where they love just to serve the people, and when I first arrived and I said, gee, we should do some dinners, and Charlie Baylus just said to me, he said, we actually don't really need to do dinner. We're happy just, that people get to go home at 5 o'clock and be with their families. It's very family orientated. Obviously the Baylus family is quite large. So there was never a need to increase the turnover to make sure that things were going all right, because Merrick's on itself is very successful. So we do a wedding every fortnight, one Saturday night a fortnight. They do a wedding, and they're pretty exclusive, and it's booked out for forever. So and that's it. I built a food truck, and there's a food truck in the back car park now, which we open when the weather's good, and it's on a Friday night for 2 hours. So we do it doesn't have a staple, so we just I go one week it's burgers, next week it's spaghetti and meatballs, next week it's mussels, and we just plan it around the weather, and if the weather looks good we'll open it, and we open for 2 hours or till sold out, and it's a lot of fun. I can tell you it is a lot of fun coming to work every day.
When people enter the hospitality industry, they generally give away their rights to and hand over their nights to the industry. You've sort of found yourself in a situation where you've got the nights off. What's that like for you, and what sort of impact has it had?
It's actually really good. I actually, when I was in contract talks with the family, and they said we would really like you, Martin, to have Sunday, Mondays off, and so that you can have a bit of the weekend and so on, and only work weddings if they're sort of above sort of 100 packs, and that sort of thing, and just leave I've got a really good sous chef and leave it to him and the rest of the team to do, and I suppose that was a big change for me, because whenever there's a sporting event on or something on in the stadium, you're expected to be on deck. And all of a sudden, I actually don't. I don't need to, because they believe that my best work is done during the day with the crew, and so I should I suppose at my age should be able to go and still have a weekend and have some time to myself. But the whole brigade, the whole even the front of house crew is just. They come to work, they're happy. The funniest thing at Merrick's is that breakfast doesn't start till 8:30. And that is, again, that's a family initiative. We have a coffee window that opens at 7 a.m. that sells really beautiful pastries and so on. And so there's obviously a couple of baristas, and one of my pastry chefs is in early to make sure that's up and running at 7 a.m. But the rest of the brigade doesn't start till 8. We do breakfast from 8:30 till 10:30. Then we have a very civilized sort of breakdown, and then set up for lunch. Lunch starts right on 12. And that's life at Merrick's. It's actually, for a hospitality, for someone who's been in hospitality since he left school, it's very unique, and it's really nice.
What are you cooking there in the bistro? Can you give us a sort of a dish or two that sort of exemplifies what you're doing?
Yeah, so I try to encapture purely, the fact that we grow at Algae Park, which is one of the wineries, and we have some acres there of gardens that growing all our own veg and things like that. So vegetables and herbs, and our tomato, we've got 36 different types of tomatoes at the moment, which are make their way onto the menu in some shape or form. The burrata with heirloom tomatoes at the moment is unbelievable, purely because those tomatoes are like nothing you've ever eaten. They are just incredibly, and it's all organic. We don't use any sprays or anything up on the farm, clearly because the vineyard's right beside it. But it's I try to use what's within 25 kilometres, and obviously at Merrick's, for those that know, it is surrounded by 2 bays. So there's a bay on each side. It's beachside. So work very closely with my seafood people to make sure that I'm getting local seafood. So my mussels and my flounder at the moment, and they message me every morning about 5 a.m. to say, hey, we've just managed to get our hands on this or that, and so on. My beef is O'Connor beef, so it's within sort of 15 kilometres. My eggs are from 2 kilometres away from a little company that 2 amazing women run called Yokley Dokley, and I get 10 cartons of eggs fresh every day, fresh every couple of days from them, because our breakfast trade is pretty monstrous. And so everything comes from local people, and it's just so unique. My potatoes are from 3 kilometres away. My kiflers are incredible, and everything I can get my hands on. At Merrick's itself, the whole back garden is herbs, so we grow all our own herbs within the building. So if you're here at 11:45 and we've got a really beautiful garden setting with big gazebos and things, and you'll just see a couple of chefs out there with scissors and a bucket collecting the fresh herbs and oreganos and rosemaries and artichokes and beans and all the things that are grown within the grounds of Merrick's store. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty special.
You've gone like from one extreme to the other. Like it's about as extreme as you can get, the change that you've had. What sort of impact has it had on your approach to cooking and your role in hospitality? Has it changed you a lot?
It has. It actually has dramatically changed me. I mean, my days are spent now talking to producers on a constant basis, not just because we want to try something different. It's because they're popping their head in to buy a coffee anyway or whatever, so they'll come and have a chat. But it's changed my perception purely the fact that I'm teaching my youngest, I've got a couple of apprentices, and I'm teaching them that they've got to have this respect for the person that grew the food, or the Tim O'Connor from O'Connor Beefs in a couple of times a week for lunch. And, I always get him to go and have a chat about, the cattle and so on. And the girls from the egg farm, they're the same. When they drop their eggs off, they might call in and actually have eggs for breakfast. So it's really changed how I see things, and how I, back in the stadium world, it was purely through a procurement team. We wouldn't really deal with suppliers. As chefs, we would just order it through a computer system, and then next thing you know, it's in the stores. Whereas here, it's I spend a lot of time talking to Tim, our gardener up at Algae Park, and even down to the fine details of all the flowers and all the things we use as garnish, which is people are paying $9, $10 a punnet for those in the city. I'm getting containers and containers of that just straight off the farm. So it really has given me a better appreciation, I think, for food and for the people that start the journey of that food, and I think and I try to do it justice on the plate here at Merrick's. We try to make sure that whatever someone's, done their really hard work and producing such an amazing product, we try to do it justice when we put it on the plate.
With sort of what you're doing there and what you've built, it's giving you the foundations to sort of look at the year ahead and the next sort of 5 years. Do you have any sort of plans to really bed yourself in the region?
Yeah, I really do. I'm real estate shopping at the moment, because I think, this is probably somewhere I could quite happily retire. It is a beautiful part of the world. And to be honest, even as a young chef, as a young kid, I didn't spend much time down here, even being from Victoria, where we kind of went the other way to sort of Torquay and those sort of places. So now that I've had a chance to explore and I've made some friends and so on, it's the next few years. I mean, the family are pretty adamant that I'm not going anywhere, so that's kind of nice. So I've done some winning early, and it was funny. I had a coffee with it. There's a general manager who runs the whole sort of business, from the cattle farms to the wineries through to the store, and we went and had a coffee the other morning, and I said to him, "Hey mate, I've got a question about my contract," and he goes, "Yes, I need to give you a new one, but it's going to be 6 years." So it was kind of funny. Lawrence is an amazing man who's grown up within the family, and he's grown up. His father worked for the family, and then he took over, and now he's general manager of pretty much the whole operation. And very passionate. One minute he's picking, he's the GM, but one minute he's helping picking grapes because they're just doing harvest at the moment. And then next thing you know, he's driving a truck delivering me a new piece of equipment that I've begged for, So, but it's it's a pretty unique part of the world and pretty unique people involved in it. So it's really actually given me after the COVID years, and I know what Victoria went through a horrible time with COVID. It's actually given me a whole new perspective on life in general. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, that's incredible to hear, and it's so good to catch up with you again on Deep in the Weeds. Look forward to the next installment. I'm sure you'll have a few tales for us. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Absolutely, Huck. Thanks for having me, and congratulations on 3 years of a great podcast.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.